Hello, everyone. Sue Tetzloff with you here from Capstone Leadership Solutions. And today's topic in our live event is about wasting our employees' times. So as leaders, we certainly know that time is valuable for ourselves and for our employees, and productivity is certainly a big topic at all levels in an organization, no matter what your role is. And so we certainly don't have time to waste. Nobody has time to waste. We as leaders, and certainly not our employees as well. So I want to talk about how we as leaders can be very well intended to go about our leadership using some amazing, proactive, positive, results-oriented tactics, or they're meant to be, but by not well executing them, we actually might be wasting our employees' time and ours and not getting the intended results. So, we can be very, very well intended, but if we don't execute well on those intentions, then we're not going to get the results and time is going to be wasted. So I'm going to talk about some very common leadership tactics that we promote that leaders should adopt, organizations should adapt, but how if we don't do it well, we're just wasting our employees' time. So that first one is I'm going to talk about is employee surveys. So a very common tactic in organizations, and we highly recommend it, it's very, very useful information, and a tactic to use is to, conduct an employee engagement survey. And so we go through the process, and we really want to promote really high response rates in that. Our partner organizations, we're seeing them get very high response rates, 85, 95% of their employees participating, which, you know what, guys? Don't waste their time if you're not going to do something meaningful with the results, right? And we see this all the time. We'll see, we'll go into an organization, we'll be assessing them, we'll ask for information about their last employee surveys, we'll look at the data, and then we'll say, what have you done with it, right? What's been done for good with this information? And so if you don't use it for good, and there isn't a promise and an actual follow through on that promise to use it for good, don't even waste your employees' time to conduct a survey, okay? And so use it for good. Now, this could apply to patient surveys too. We see that too, where organizations have these processes in place to survey their patients, and they take up their patients' time for them to, complete these surveys or engage in these survey calls, and then they don't do anything with the information that creates good. So, that's number one here. Employee surveys, don't waste your employees' time. If you aren't committed to and have a process and a plan and execute well on it for what you're going to do with that survey information. And if you don't use it for good, it's going to be harder and harder in the future to engage employees in this survey process, right? They'll just stop participating, like nothing happened last time, and so I'm not going to participate this time. So it really starts to spiral on you in future efforts to try to garner this kind of information if you don't use it for good. So don't waste your employees' time on a survey if you aren't really going to follow through and execute well on using it for good. Now, it doesn't mean you have to improve everything. There's just no way to do that. But you have to have a process for using that information, sharing the results, sharing the things that are the priority things that are going to be focused on and improved because the employees were heard. So there we go. Don't waste your employees' time on surveys if you're not going to use them for good. Number two, the tactic of employee rounding. So leaders rounding with employees. Again, very well intended. Great tactic to build relationships and to strengthen relationships, right? But it can actually diminish relationships if it's not well executed, and you're just wasting your time and your employees' time to round one-on-one, face-to-face, these conversations if you don't, again, use that information for good, right? So yes, just the process of meeting one-on-one with employees can be very powerful, but if in that, powerful conversation where you're asking well-intentioned questions and garnering input and information. If you, again, do nothing with that, follow up and follow through is the secret sauce of leadership. That's what our Karen Stockton likes to say, one of our great coaches, and we love that because it's so true. Follow up and follow through is the secret sauce to leadership, and that is so true with rounding. I remember one time a surgeon came up to me in our organization where we had a practice of rounding with employees, with physicians, etc. And she came up to me and she goes, "I love that we do this, right? I love that, you know, we really are committed to building relationships through this practice. But, you know, this leader that rounds with me often, nothing ever happens with that information. And so the next time he meets with me, you know, I really think, is this a valuable use of my time? You know, a surgeon, for goodness sakes, you know, is this a valuable use of my time to sit down with this leader to have this conversation if, you know, I've never seen any good results come out of it. Nothing ever is followed through. And even if the answer is no, or, you know, I can't do anything with that right now, that at least should be communicated, right? Or else, instead of improving the relationship, you're damaging it, and you could be obviously wasting people's time. So you're just going through the motions. So a lot of times these kind of things, when we talk about these things that are really great, amazing, positive, proactive, results-oriented tactics, they are only that if we execute them well, right? Otherwise, they're tactics that just wasted time. And so again, it might be, are you thinking of it as just a task, something you have to get off your to-do list? Or are you going into it with this belief that if this is a powerful tactic and I'm going to execute on it well, and I'm going to get results from it, and in particular, I'm going to do it well-intentioned, and I'm going to do it with heart, but I'm going to do it very, very well, and I'm going to follow up and follow through. It's not just a task to get off my to-do list. It's a tactic, and I'm going to use it to the best effect. So rounding is an amazing tactic, but not if it's just a task on your to-do list and you're just going through the motions and you're not executing on it well, and whether you're in the rounding session or the follow-up, follow-through. So don't waste your employees' time if you're not going to do it with heart and do it well and do the follow-up and follow-through. Another way we can waste our employees' time is in training. So we train, right? So we have to develop our employees and train them and invest in them, whether that's things that are required trainings, regulatory, blah, 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 or whether it's something that's really, you know, part of our efforts to be a great organization. Maybe it's training on positive communication standards with a nursing bundle or some amazing things like that. So obviously, if we want these practices to come alive in our workforce, training is going to be a component of it. However, the tactic of training is one of those things that, you know, can be kind of diminished to an event. So training as an event versus a process. So if you only think of training as an event, whether that's leadership training or employee training, and it's just an event, and not part of a process, then there's a high likelihood you're just wasting your time. You're going to get little return on investment for that training, because if you're familiar with Everett Rogers' work and the diffusion of innovation is that, you know, when we launch something out there that's innovative and new, and, you know, we package it in training to get it into the hands and the hearts of our employees, that there's a very few number of people that's going to grab it right out of the gate with that one event, right? And so there has to be this process, this follow through to bring the training alive and actually act on it. So learn, do. And so there's tactics that have to be used beyond the training to bring it alive, such as validation and feedback loop, top of mind tactics, things like that. But if you as a leader in an organization haven't given that enough thought and you don't execute on that well, then the event of training itself is a waste of time. So we have to think about it differently than just the training event, and think about the training process if we are not going to waste time. Okay, so let's move on to another tactic, evaluations. Oh, the beloved annual performance evaluations. We know that a lot of leaders just really don't like doing it, and we know that employees don't like this either, right? But we can make an evaluation process a very meaningful, impactful process that is not a waste of time for both the employee and the leader and the entire organization if we do it very, very well. And so, you know, the number one reason why that often that, you know, this doesn't, you know, provide great benefit for the time invested is that the process and the tool itself is not designed well to be impactful and powerful and part of your process for creating great results. So because of that, oftentimes just the you know, design of the actual evaluation tool itself and process is such that it's really not perceived by anyone to create great value. So it is kind of, you know, diminished to just a tool and something just to get off your to-do list, right? And so, you know, part of this and making it really worth your time as a leader and the employee's time is to make sure that the right things are being talked about in that powerful one-on-one conversation, because that is the most powerful conversation a human can have, is one-on-one, face-to-face. So this is formal feedback, one-on-one, face-to-face. And if that conversation, that evaluation is not designed to be highly impactful and positive and results oriented, then, you know, it really, you go into it thinking this is just a waste of my time. I just want to get off my to-do list and be done with it, right? And another way sometimes that, you know, this becomes a waste of time is even if you have a great tool that a leader might not be trained well to execute on that. And so in particular, where they might not muster the will to say the, you know, things that are really honest and true that they should be giving feedback on in these formal conversations. So sometimes they kind of minimize the problems, or they don't go after the opportunities for improvement. Maybe I had a whole, you know, separate live event on this just recently about how we maybe overrate people and give them feedback as if they're great when maybe they have huge opportunities to improve. And so then we've just wasted their time and ours because we haven't used the tactic to, you know, as part of an improvement effort. In fact, we've actually just kind of praised maybe behavior and performance that isn't, you know, to the level that we want, just because we wanted to get through this evaluation process, you know, as quickly and painlessly as possible. And so what a waste of time, folks. You know, evaluations, it wastes your time and the employee's time if we don't have the right process and tools designed, and we haven't trained our leaders to execute on it well, and that they muster the will and master the skill to give formal feedback that actually isn't a waste of time. It's a great investment of time. So there's another way we can waste our employees' time. Another way we can waste employees' time is through suggestion programs. And so the reason that a lot of times these have fizzled out in organizations, oh, we tried that and it didn't work, right? There's a lot of reasons why that happens, but probably the predominant reason why that happens is just like employee surveys, right? We ask for people's opinions in an employee survey. We ask for employee suggestions in a suggestion program. In rounding, we ask for feedback and information to well-designed questions in a rounding process. And then again, if we don't have the follow-up and follow-through, then people stop submitting suggestions, right? So again, it's kind of like training. You can't just have an event. You have to have the follow-up and follow-through to keep it alive. And just like a suggestion program, you have to have, you know, a well-designed system so that, one, you're getting really amazing suggestions that aren't just about, you know, the food in the cafeteria, but it's about really important, you know, strategic kind of things. So a well-designed program that really gets your employees thinking about the right things and giving you suggestions about the most important things, and then really using those to, again, you know, do something good. And again, we can't act on every single suggestion. We can't, you know, whether it's in an opinion survey, a suggestion program, rounding, we have to have a way to communicate back, close the loop so that we build trust even on things that we can't act on right now. And that there's that closing of the loop, the acknowledgement that I heard you, but, you know, there's just so many things and let's prioritize. And this, you know, hasn't made the list right now. So suggestion programs can be amazing tactics, but, you know, not designed well as to what's coming into that process and what you do with what comes out of the process. You do not have that, really, well executed and well designed. Don't even do it, guys. You're just wasting your employees' time. Now, with all of these things, sometimes we just need to start. So I don't want to say that you got to have it perfect before you start, but the idea is to just start and then have that commitment that when we commit to one of these tactics as, a tactic that we're going to use to become a great leader, a great department, a great organization, is that then we commit to that circle back, that study adjust, to elevate the use of these tactics and the execution of these tactics so that we're getting the best return out of our investment of our time and our employees' time. So, you don't have to be perfect at all of this when you start, but you have to commit to stay the course, to study adjust, elevate the tactic, commit to the tactic to get the optimal best results and return on your investment for even adopting the tactic. Otherwise, if you're not going to have that level of commitment, you're probably just wasting your time, and it's going to be flavor of the month. We started that, it didn't work, and so it went by the wayside. And a lot of times it isn't because the tactic wasn't a great one that would be useful. It's because we didn't follow through to make it a valuable tool because we've study adjusted, elevated, and diffused the tactic. So suggestion programs. Another one is employee teams. So sometimes, we're a huge proponent of employee-driven teams to engage our employees to be contributors towards our major strategies and our goals, and that beyond their day-to-day job descriptions, and their job functions, they can, outside of that, contribute amazing things to their department or the entire organization. So, if you commit as an organization to carry out this practice, or even in your own department, like through our greatness course, that's one of the things that we teach in phase 1 is how to set up your own employee-driven efforts in your department. And there's lots of ways to do that. And so if you go about, committing to and adopting that tactic, again, really use it for its full intent, which is to, create greater horsepower towards your biggest goals and strategies, and not to just, diminish these employees' contributions to advisors, right? So if we put an employee team together that's going to focus on, making this certain improvement, and we, really as the leader of the team, maybe we have these employees there, if we just dominate, if we, the ideas, the discussion, the work, we leave with the to-do list, they have nothing to do, and we kind of just, diminish them to advisors, they're not going to feel very engaged or excited about showing up for those meetings, right? So engage them, truly empower them to be the main decision makers, be the main idea generators, do the majority of the work and the action assignments, because that is the way to get the biggest return on investment of your time and theirs, is that they actually feel like true contributing members and not just advisors, right? So don't waste your time putting them around a table, inviting them to a meeting. If you're really not going to engage them, empower them, listen to them, let them be the amazing contributors that they can be, you're just wasting their time. And guess what? They're probably just going to stop showing up anyway, because again, they're going to feel like, wow, that's really not worth my time. And you'll wonder why people aren't showing up for those kind of meetings. So, so don't kind of go about this tactic, which is a very powerful one to be used by leaders in individual departments and entire organizations. Don't go down that path if you are not committed to really engaging and empowering your employees to this level and letting them be those major contributors that they certainly can be. Otherwise you are just wasting their time. Another way we can waste our employees' time is related to staff meetings. So we've had several live events, and we have other resources out there related to, meetings and making them meaningful and valuable. But again, when I look at wasting employees' time, staff meetings is one of those areas where we can really waste our employees' time. And so we really challenge leaders to think about all meetings and how, if we're leading a meeting, we can be the very best leader of that meeting. And also, if we're participating in meetings, how we can be the very best participant in meetings. So, if we go into whatever our role is in a meeting as the leader or the participant, of really knowing what our role is and how to maximize, using meetings to be meaningful and impactful, then, we're all going to benefit from not wasting time for meetings, because about half of the meetings in our country are considered to be wasted, and there's billions of dollars in our economy and the combined business industries of, wasted meeting time. But, in the, example of staff meetings, what we see is the biggest time waster there. And it's another reason why people don't show up for them, because we hear leaders say this all the time. I hold staff meetings and nobody shows up. Well, probably because they're, not really useful and impactful, meaningful meetings. They're not a valuable use of the time, and the employee thinks it's not worth my time to show up, okay? And even if they're mandated and required to show up, there's attendance rules and, requirements for them to show up. It doesn't mean it's valuable just because they show up. And the big mistake that we see there that wastes our employees' time is that these meetings are used to share information versus to meaningfully engage our employees on the most important things, where we can have dialogue and, make progress towards improvement, those kind of things. So if it's just to share information, a staff meeting, there's a huge likelihood that employees will, smarten up and say, there's much easier, more effective, better ways to keep me informed than to have me show up for an hour at a staff meeting, maybe on my day off, or, whatever. So what we want to do is to turn staff meetings into something that is highly useful and not just information. Okay, so think about your communication plan and how you get information out and the cadence of it, daily, weekly, monthly, and think about very powerful communication tactics, and then use the staff meeting for a whole new purpose that is not a waste of time and really makes a difference and is part of maybe your goal process, your improvement process, your, getting employees engaged and creative with ideas and decisions related to those goals. So if you change the whole purpose of your staff meetings to be highly purposed around things that are really, really important versus just communicating information, I think you'll waste less of your time and your employees' time. And so at the same time, you improve your communication processes because you put some thought into, if this is just an informational meeting, how can I get that out in more, impactful ways, more timely ways than a monthly staff meeting, and then use my monthly staff meeting to be highly impactful and useful for goals and improvements and things of that nature. So so there's some, I could go on and on and on. I was thinking, oh my God, this is going to be a 3-hour live where we talk about all the ways we can waste our employees' time by, as leaders, being very well intended with tactics that are truly meant to have great, positive, proactive results. But if they're not well executed, and done well, we certainly are just wasting our time and our employees. So thanks for your time today. This is hopefully something that you can reflect on and think, maybe I am wasting my employees' time in one or more of these areas because I'm dabbling in this stuff. I'm maybe not doing it as well as I could or should. Maybe I've started to use the tactic but really haven't invested in truly making it the very best it can be so that it gets the maximum result and is the most value for my time and my employees' time. So give that some thought, give that some thought about where you're at with these tactics, whether you're using them and you could do them better, or whether you're not using these tactics and you think, wow, I need to use that tactic, and if I'm going to use it, I'm going to commit to doing it very, very well for the best use of my time and my employees' time. So there's lots of ways we can help you with that. These leadership tactics are things that we promote and teach all the time in many different ways through our company, Capstone Leadership Solutions. We do have an employee leader or a leadership summit, a Capstone Leadership Summit coming up in Eaton Rapids in October. That information is on our website. We have one coming up in Wisconsin as well, but that one is full and has a wait list right now. But the Michigan one still has some seats available, and we teach all of our leadership tactics there and give you all of those tips to make them very powerful tactics. Our book, The Employee Experience, certainly has a lot of the employee experience solutions and those tactics there and how to make those a very good use of your time. And get results from using those. We have our Greatness course, which is a 9-month course for individual leaders to master both the employee engagement piece of engaging your employees in new ways to contribute, but then also how to maximize the benefits you can get from some leadership tactics in this leadership bundle. And also for entire organizations, our partnership is the way that we go about working with organizations on a longer term basis and a wider scale across the entire organization to bring these tactics alive and make them very useful, powerful tactics that are certainly getting great results for our partner organizations, including those of them that are getting, top ranking award-winning results because they've committed to these tactics and they followed up and they followed through to great execution, and they're always getting better at executing these tactics to greater effect. So if you need information on any of those ways that we work with individual leaders or entire organizations, our website, capstoneleadership.net, contains all sorts of information, and you can reach out to us there to book a call as well if you want to discuss the various options of ways that we work with individual leaders or entire organizations. So have a great rest of your week, everyone, and thanks for your time today.